This is my house. Get out. The one who declared those words while staring straight into my eyes was my sister Natalie Reed's husband, Jason Reed. We were in the living room, which was supposed to be my castle. At its center, he was hurling angry shouts at me. On the sofa, my sister Natalie sat with her legs crossed like a queen, staring at me as if mocking me. Around them, their children were running around, tossing the cushions I had chosen, while unfamiliar snack bags and juice cartons were scattered across the floor. This place was supposed to be the embodiment of my dreams, but it had been reduced to a trampled, occupied territory. Just a few hours earlier, I had been on the verge of experiencing one of the brightest moments of my life. After countless nights of grueling effort in Silicon Valley, I had finally earned this refuge, a seaside house in California that was meant to be the one place where I could truly find peace. It was not merely a building. It was my dignity, won at the cost of sleepless nights. That day, I was driving toward my new home after completing the final inspection, struggling to steady my pounding heart. The cool, metallic sensation of the brand new key I had received from the real estate company still lingered on my fingertips. I was about to enjoy my first night in this house. I would enjoy a quiet celebration alone without anyone disturbing me. However, the moment I approached the private driveway, my heart leapt with a sickening thud. Inside the gate, a large black SUV I had never seen before was parked. I hoped desperately that it was some kind of mistake. But that faint hope shattered as I approached the front door. The heavy oak door, which should have been tightly closed, was slightly ajar. Holding my breath, I listened carefully, and what I heard from inside was unmistakably my sister Natalie's shrill laughter and my brother-in-law Jason's crude jokes. If losing all sense of reason has a definition, this was surely it. I felt the blood in my body surge backward, and my fingertips rapidly turned cold. Even so, with trembling hands, I pushed the door fully open and stepped inside. I could hear the crisp sound of my high heels pressing down on the snack bags scattered across the floor. That small sound made the noisy living room fall silent, as if someone had cut the power. Jason, who had been lounging lazily on the sofa, shifted his gaze from the TV to me, a deep wrinkle forming between his brows. "Hannah?" The first person to speak was my sister, Natalie. Her face shifted into a smile that looked as if she were openly belittling me. "Well, look, honey. Speak of the devil, huh? The true star of this house has finally arrived." Natalie stood up theatrically and spread her arms wide. "So, Hannah, are you surprised? We were preparing a surprise party just for you. We just happened to arrive a little early, that's all." "A surprise party?" The words that escaped my mouth were so faint they were barely audible. The chaos unfolding before my eyes had absolutely no connection to her explanation. At that moment, Jason slowly rose to his feet and blocked my path. "Come on, Natalie, don't make it sound like something cute like a surprise. It's way more than that, right?" Jason flashed a vulgar grin and pointed his thumb over his shoulder. "Look, Hannah, starting today, this place is our family's home." I asked in a voice trembling with barely contained shock. "I haven't told anyone about this house. And yet here you are. How did you even know about this place? How did you find out?" At my question, Natalie smiled triumphantly, as if she had been waiting for this moment. She clearly wanted to boast about her so-called cleverness. "You're so naive, Hannah. Mom told us you bought a wonderful house. And a few days ago, you posted that picture on Facebook, remember? The one you took at the beach with that innocent little caption, 'Beautiful view.' The distinctive roof of the house next door showed up in the corner of the photo. These days, even a kid could trace the address from that." "Mom, I see. Then how did you get inside? I should be the only one with the key." This time, Jason puffed out his chest as if taking credit were some kind of achievement. "The window in the back. The frame was a bit loose. One card was all it took to pop it open. Your security is basically non-existent." They had confessed everything with their own mouths, that they had used my mother's information and broken in illegally. Then, as if to finish me off, Natalie added more. "That's how it is, Hannah. We're family, aren't we? Your success, your assets, those belong to all of us as a family. Helping each other in times of trouble is normal, right? You're always working so hard, poor thing. So we're going to make good use of this house for you. That's what real family is all about, isn't it?" The moment I heard those words, something inside me snapped with a sharp, unmistakable sound. A dam of emotions I had suppressed deep in my heart for years burst open. Anger, sorrow, and above all, overwhelming despair. They had trampled on my effort, my dignity, and my dreams with complete disregard. And they were trying to justify it all with the word family. Strangely, the rage that had been burning so fiercely inside me faded away like receding tides, and instead my mind became sharply clear. The people standing before me were no longer my sister and her husband. They were nothing more than intruders trying to steal my property and my dignity. I slowly drew in a breath, and in a voice so calm it surprised even me, I asked them a question. Making good use of it, you say? How lovely. Why don't you tell me in more detail how exactly you plan to make good use of it? My unexpectedly calm tone made Natalie look momentarily unsettled, but she must have mistaken it for complete submission. She quickly regained her smug smile and signaled to Jason beside her. Receiving the cue, Jason puffed out his chest and eagerly began speaking. He started bragging about his own foolishness. Isn't it obvious? Leaving a prime oceanfront property like this sitting around is something an idiot would do. I did a little digging, and during the summer season, you can charge $2,000 a night and still get fully booked. I already made the Airbnb page and listed it. Since it's under your name, the approval went through instantly. That's right, Hannah. Natalie continued with a dreamy expression. We already got several inquiries. We can live here in luxury and still earn passive income on the side. Now you can finally contribute to the family. You should be thanking us. After they finished babbling about their illegal actions and shallow motives, I quietly opened my mouth. I see. Already listed on Airbnb? I wondered if they noticed the slight smile forming at the corner of my lips. Let me teach you something, Natalie, Jason. I stepped closer to them. Occupying someone else's home without the owner's permission and trying to profit from it is not called helping family. It is unlawful entry and attempted fraud. In other words, an undeniable crime. Crime. Jason's face drained of color in an instant. Next to him, Natalie screamed hysterically. What are you talking about, Hannah? Stop exaggerating. This is just a family matter. We're just borrowing the house for a little while. How on earth is that a crime? I spoke with genuine disbelief. You two have always been like this, using the word family as a shield while taking everything from me. My time, my money, even my kindness. But it ends today. From this moment on, you are no longer family. You're nothing but criminals. What is, you ungrateful brat? Jason, enraged, lifted his hand as if to strike me. And in that exact moment, that's enough. A low, commanding voice filled the room with such authority that it left no room for defiance. All of us instinctively turned our eyes toward the source of the voice. The front door, which had remained quietly shut until then, slowly opened, and standing there was a man impeccably dressed in a high-quality suit, staring at us without a single change in expression. He was my longtime friend and an exceptional attorney, Brandon Hayes. Brandon cast a cold glance at Jason's raised hand before speaking calmly, yet unmistakably firmly. I will not tolerate any threatening behavior toward my client. The air in the room froze instantly. At Brandon's quiet warning, Jason could not even lower the hand he had raised, his body stiffening as if time itself had stopped. Natalie, unable to grasp who this suddenly appearing man in a suit was, simply looked back and forth between me and Brandon in confusion. Brandon paid no attention to either of them and stepped forward toward the center of the living room. Then he placed the attaché case he was holding on the nearby coffee table with a sharp click. Who the hell are you? Jason managed to squeeze out the question with a trembling voice. Let me introduce him. This is my attorney, Brandon Hayes. When I said this, Natalie muttered blankly, An attorney? Just now, the two of you have admitted to committing serious criminal acts with your own mouths. All of it has been recorded. As he said this, Brandon lightly tapped the breast pocket of his suit. There, the small recording device's indicator light glowed red. The blood drained from Natalie's face. First, Mrs. Reed. You identified this address from your mother's Facebook photo and came here without the permission of the owner, Miss Hannah. This may constitute a violation of privacy. Next, Mr. Reed. You used a card to pry open the back window and unlawfully entered the property. This constitutes criminal trespassing. Brandon paused for a moment. Then he took a sheet of paper from the attaché case and slid it across the table. Here is the Airbnb listing page created under the account of Mr. Jason Reed, as well as the direct message records exchanged by Mrs. Natalie Reed with her acquaintances on social media. Printed there, in painfully clear text, were the very words Natalie had sent to her friend. She's just my poor little sister who does nothing but work. We're the real family, because we'll make good use of what she has, right? And then there was the printed Airbnb page. Displayed on it were Jason's proud-looking profile photo and shameless promotional phrases like, "Dream oceanfront villa." That was just a joke. Natalie tried to excuse herself in a frail voice, but Brandon dismissed her coldly. No one attempts to rent out someone else's home as a joke. Your actions were deliberate and malicious. There is absolutely no room for excuses. Each of Brandon's words cut into them like blades forged from the law. No room for excuses. Natalie repeated his words in a daze, nearly collapsing to the floor. Jason, his face bright red, attempted to shout something, but only incoherent growls came out. Above their heads, the word guilty might as well have been shining in bold letters. Looking down at the two of them coldly, I finally voiced the last question I had kept sealed deep in my heart. How could you use our mother in your crime? What? Startled by my sudden accusation, Natalie's head snapped upward. Mom's Facebook post. She simply wanted to share a beautiful view with everyone. And you used that to pinpoint the address and plan your little break-in. Using your own mother for a crime? Do you even have a conscience? My words made Natalie's eyes widen. Perhaps she thought I was blaming our mother. But a moment later, her expression twisted, guilt transforming instantly into a self-righteous, victim-pretending outrage. What are you talking about? Mom has always been on our side. I'm sure even this time she'd agree with us that it's wrong for Hannah to keep such a mansion all to herself. She'd support our plan. Of course. She was still the same, twisting anything to justify herself. I let out a small, deep sigh. Brandon, play the recording. At my instruction, Brandon nodded, pulled out his smartphone, and began playing an audio file. The voice that echoed from the speaker was a familiar, gentle one. Natalie? Yes, it's me. That's right. Hannah bought a beautiful house. Yes, in Carmel. The location? Well, I posted a photo on Facebook. It was lovely, so take a look at the picture. It was a recording from a few days ago, the phone conversation between Natalie and our mother. How did you even get that phone recording? Ignoring Natalie's shocked outcry, Brandon played the next audio file. Hannah, it's me. I just got a call from Natalie. Yes, everything is going according to plan. She took the bait easily. She'll pinpoint the location from the Facebook photo in no time. Are you sure about this? Pushing them into a corner like this. The voice coming from the speaker was completely different from before, shaken by fear and guilt. And then came my own calm voice responding to her. Yes, Mom. Thank you. I won't hold back anymore. I won't let anyone suffer like that ever again. I remembered that conversation as clearly as if it had happened yesterday. A few weeks earlier, my mother had called me, crying. Natalie is asking me for money again. She said you refused her. She said it's just until Jason's new business starts making money. I don't know what to do anymore. Natalie had always been like that. From asking for spending money in her school days, to the down payment for her car, to her wedding dress. Every major expense in her life had always been paid by my mother and me. After I became successful in recent years, all of Natalie's demands for money had been directed at me. But what would she do if I refused even once? She would always end up going to our mother, who is far from wealthy, and force her to hand over money. In fact, back when I was still a student and unable to help much, she had repeatedly begged Mom for money and made her cry. I became the shield to protect the mother I loved from my sister's exploitation. That's why I kept sending money. I believed that quietly continuing to pay was the only way to preserve my mother's peace. But I had reached my limit. And when I refused to help this time, I knew that if Natalie contacted our mother, I had to set my plan into motion. Mom, let's end this. I'm going to break this rotten chain. I have a plan. And my voice replied firmly to my mother on the other side of the call. That's right. All of this was a trap I had designed. The Facebook post had been a decoy planted by my mother and me. I predicted Natalie would take the bait and that she and Jason would try to seize this house. And my mother, after years of suffering under Natalie's demands, made the painful decision to cooperate with me so she could finally help save her daughter. Natalie's face lost all expression. The one who had been betrayed was not me, but herself. That cruel truth had finally pierced her mind. Natalie sat on the floor, staring into empty space. There was no longer a single trace of light in her eyes. Beside her, Jason seemed still unable to fully grasp the situation, repeating only the words, "No, this can't be." I could almost see the fragile tower of dependency and exploitation they had built crumbling into dust. Their children, sensing the gravity in the air, neither cried nor made a fuss, but simply clung to their mother in silence. For a brief moment, a sharp pain ran through my chest, but I forced the feeling away. For the sake of these children's future, everything had to end here. The heavy silence dominating the room was broken by Brandon. With a completely emotionless, businesslike tone, he began the final notice. "Now then, Mr. Reed, Mrs. Reed, you have only two options remaining." Brandon raised one finger. "First, accept every condition presented by my client, Miss Hannah." Then he raised a second finger. "Second, we call the police right here. You will be arrested on the spot for trespassing and attempted fraud, and afterward we will pursue every possible civil lawsuit, including claims for damages. Every record of the financial support you have received from Miss Hannah will also be disclosed in court." Natalie's shoulders trembled violently at those words. "I have three conditions." Taking over from Brandon, I spoke. "First, you will gather every one of your belongings in this house and leave immediately. Second, you will delete the Airbnb listing you created right in front of us and sign a legally binding document promising never to involve yourselves in my private property again. And third, from this moment forward, you will never contact me or our mother again. No calls, no emails, no messages on social media. If you break this rule, I will immediately file for a restraining order." It was a declaration of the complete severing of our family ties. Natalie slowly lifted her face and managed to force out a faint voice. How could you, Hannah? You're saying you're abandoning us? Your family?" "You were the one who abandoned us." Without a trace of emotion, I responded with nothing but the truth. "You are the ones who spent years discarding our bond piece by piece, and today you crushed the very last fragment with your own hands." There were no tears left. Brandon glanced at his watch and delivered his cold order. "You have 1 hour, begin packing. If you are not fully out by then, we will proceed with the second option, contacting the police." Natalie stood up unsteadily like a puppet with its strings cut, then weakly took her children's hands and wandered toward the bedroom. Jason still glared at me as if he had something to say, but when Brandon's sharp gaze pierced him, he twisted his face in frustration and began shoving scattered belongings into bags with violent movements. The following hour felt like a scene from a nightmare. The children cried uncontrollably. Jason breathed heavily as though restraining himself from punching the walls, and Natalie moved in silence, her hands working mechanically as if her soul had left her body. Eventually, after they finished packing, Jason shoved his laptop toward Brandon. "Here. Fine, I'll delete it. That's what you want, right?" Brandon and I watched every step as Jason deleted the Airbnb listing page. Once the screen displayed "listing deleted," Brandon placed the prepared documents and a pen onto the table. "Sign here. This is a written pledge that you will never again contact Miss Hannah, her property, or her mother, Mrs. Madison." Snatching the pen, Jason scrawled his signature with violent strokes. Natalie, with trembling hands, barely managed to write her own name. Everything was finally over. Dragging their luggage behind them, they headed toward the front door. I leaned against the door frame, silently listening as the family climbed into the black SUV and the engine noise faded into the distance. Soon the sound vanished entirely, leaving nothing but crashing waves and the cries of seagulls. At last, true silence returned to my sanctuary, but there was no time for sentimentality. "Brandon, the arrangements?" In response to my question, Brandon checked his phone and answered concisely. "Everything is on schedule. The locksmith's van just turned the corner. The security team will arrive 5 minutes after that." Just as he said, a van slowly entered the driveway. "Miss Hannah Cooper, correct? We have been informed of everything by attorney Brandon Hayes." The man who stepped out of the van bowed to me before beginning his work without the slightest hesitation. The front door, the back window, the garage shutter. Every entry point in the house that Jason had mocked as wide open was swiftly replaced with state-of-the-art pick-proof electronic locks. Next to arrive was a team of security system specialists. They installed motion sensor surveillance cameras across every corner of the property and configured the system so the footage would stream directly to my smartphone 24 hours a day. Every window was fitted with the latest shock-sensing alarms that would blare loudly upon detecting any force. Just 2 hours later, my fortress had transformed into an impenetrable stronghold that no one could physically breach. After seeing the workers off once all tasks were completed, Brandon spoke to me. Hannah, physical security is now perfect, but the real problem may begin from here. His eyes were fixed on his smartphone. On the screen was Natalie's social media page. Just as expected. The post Brandon showed me was beyond belief. It contained a selfie of Natalie with red, tear-swollen eyes, and attached to it, a long, dramatic caption playing the tragic heroine. I can't believe this. I was betrayed by my only sister. My family now has nowhere to go. It's terrifying how money can turn someone so heartless. The comment section overflowed with sympathetic messages from friends who had no idea what had actually happened. Natalie's tearful performance, and the swarm of supportive replies. Most people would lose themselves in anger or panic at such a sight, but my heart remained strangely calm as I looked at the screen. Brandon, look. She's trying to drown the truth beneath a flood of emotions. I spoke quietly to Brandon standing beside me. If that's the case, then there's only one thing I need to do. I opened my laptop and brought up the screen for creating a new social media post. I didn't type excuses. I didn't write emotional words. I wrote only a short, factual, business-like message. Regarding the post by my sister, Natalie Reed, I am aware that it has caused many of you concern. However, the content of her statement greatly differs from the truth. To allow everyone to make a fair judgment, I will present only objective facts here. Then I attached several files to the post. The first was a PDF of the official property registry, proving that I was the owner of the house. The second was a security camera clip recording the moment Natalie and her husband illegally trespassed onto the property and broke into the house. And the third was the decisive screenshot of that incriminating social media message. She's just my poor little sister who does nothing but work. We're the real family, because we'll make good use of what she has, right? As the closing line of my post, I added the following. This is not an emotional dispute between family members. It is a matter of law and personal dignity. I do not wish to disclose further private information, so I will refrain from making additional comments regarding this issue. Thank you for your understanding. And without hesitation, I pressed the post button. All I had done was post the facts. Just a few minutes after I posted it. The sympathetic comments that had flooded Natalie's post abruptly stopped. In their place appeared voices of confusion and doubt. What is this supposed to mean? Is this security footage real? We'll make good use of what she has. Yeah, that's not okay. And once someone pasted a link to my post into Natalie's comment section, the tide shifted completely. Natalie's tearful selfie versus the cold, undeniable facts attached to my post. People immediately understood which weighed heavier. Sympathy transformed into condemnation. I can't believe she would do this to her own sister. I can't sympathize with this. This is straight up criminal. Accounts claiming to be Natalie's friends began deleting their comments one after another and fell silent. The tragic story she had constructed was completely dismantled in less than an hour. Months have passed since then. My home is now filled with peaceful, satisfying days. Recently, a relative contacted me and told me how Natalie and her family were doing. The incident on social media had spread quickly through their community as well. Once her lies were exposed, even the friends who had once defended her turned cold. Unable to stay there any longer, they eventually moved to a cramped, rundown apartment on the other side of town. Jason now works day labor jobs, and Natalie has started an unfamiliar part-time job. But they are struggling financially in their small apartment and reportedly fight constantly. Even after hearing all this, my heart felt strangely empty. Neither joy nor pity. They were simply experiencing the consequences of their own choices. That was all. The other day, I invited my mother to this house. She stood in front of the large living room window and quietly gazed out at the sparkling sea without saying a word. Her profile looked more peaceful than I had ever seen it. Not once did Natalie's name come up in our conversation. It wasn't that we were intentionally avoiding it. It was simply that, in our happy time together, the presence of those people was no longer necessary. There is no nostalgia for the past in my mind now, only endless possibilities and hope for the future.